for one, enjoyed Brent Venables' snappy response to why he is calling the defense for Oklahoma in 2025. We got to talk about why he might have given that snappy response and what 2025 is going to be all about for Oklahoma. What's up, kinfolk? It's RJ Young. I am not on a step mill. If this is your first time watching the #1 college football show, thank you for joining us here. We talk college football year round, and I love talking about this stuff in the offseason because everybody's undefeated in the offseason. Everybody has to start at 0 in the offseason, but some are starting off better than others. Think Ohio State is starting off better than Oklahoma. And you could make the joke that many people will, that there are quite a few programs that are starting off better than Oklahoma. But this is a pivotal year for Brent Venables and the Sooners going into year 2 as an SEC member. Rival Texas got off on the good foot. They played for the conference championship. They made the college football playoff for the second year in a row, and they made the Final Four. They also have a proven starter at quarterback in Arch Manning. I believe that he's shown enough to say proven. I've also seen enough from him and heard enough that he's going to have weapons around him to make it go. Can Oklahoma keep pace? Well, they tried to address this on the offensive side, right? Ben Arbuckle and John Mateer come down from Washington State. John Mateer, who was a 3,000-yard passer where they were 800 yards on the ground, he can do everything he can. He's going to have weapons around him too, right? I don't think that Oklahoma is going to be deficient at the receiver and running back level. I think offensive line is going to have its improvements because they frankly weren't healthy at all last year. But to the part about coaching the defense, I don't think Brent Venables was expecting to replace his defensive coordinator in 2025, no matter what happened in 2024, mostly because the problem was not on the defensive side of the ball. Not really, right? The problem was all on the offensive side, so much so that he had to fire former offensive coordinator Seth Luttrell in October of last year, hand the reins to Joe John Finley, and try to nurse something like a bowl-eligible team out of that, and they did, right? They got a dramatic win against Alabama at home before getting boat raced by LSU, and then eventually beat by Navy, who all they did was, put together one of the best seasons they've had in recent memory. The last 30 years, being quite honest with them, the only service academy that was better was Army. Now, why is Brent Venables calling the plays? Well, because Zach Alley decided he wanted to leave Oklahoma, leave Norman, to go to West Virginia to join Rich Rodriguez in his return to West Virginia. And, look, Rich Rodriguez gave Zach Alley his first job as a defensive coordinator at Jacksonville State. They did great stuff together. And when Brent Venables became the head coach at Oklahoma, he called in the guy that he helped raise over at Clemson to be his defensive coordinator, and he did that for him, right? I think that ran its course, or perhaps there was something else that he wanted to pay off here. This is a man that seems to want to repay the men that helped him and or were loyal and put faith in him at some point, right? He shows up to Clemson. He wants to be a coach. He learns at the knee of Brent Venables, and as Brent Venables still the defense coordinator at Clemson, he took a job as defense coordinator at Jacksonville State. And we know that Rich Rod gave him his first gig. I think he's repaying that when he says, hey, I need you to help me try to build West Virginia back into something like a Big 12 power in this new era of college football. So Brent Venables, who already had to replace his offensive coordinator and find a new starting quarterback, is in this thick where he has to try to find another defensive coordinator. First guy he wanted, Jim Knowles, right? Not too shabby. That is the defense coordinator for the reigning national champion, Ohio State Buckeyes, and he put together the best defense in the sport last year. Turns out the number that Oklahoma was willing to pay was not enough, and he wanted to go back near home. He's from Philadelphia. That's about 3 hours from Penn State. He wanted to coach at Penn State. He's always wanted to coach at Penn State, and he's the highest paid coordinator in the country. It's really hard to compete with that, right? So as you were looking around and wondering aloud who's going to be the next defense coordinator at Oklahoma, many of us had already come to the conclusion that Brent Venables has come to. It's got to be him, right? He is one of the best defensive play callers of the last 25 years. And I thought his response to why he was returning to call plays was interesting and funny. He was snappy about it. This is the man who's fired. He says, why am I calling plays? Because I'm good at it. And it's like the question was really, I think, underneath, do you feel like you're coaching for your job in 2025? And Brent Venables said, I've been coaching from a job for 30 years, right? I understand that. I get where he's coming from. The question also is in good faith, because you who are watching this show and you who are an Oklahoma fan, even someone who casually watches Oklahoma in the SEC is going, Yeah, it feels to us like you got to be coaching for your job because Oklahoma doesn't do losing seasons. And you've had two of the only losing seasons of the last 25 years at Oklahoma. They're both yours. I got a 10-win season in there too. Yeah, but that was 2 years ago, and that was in the Big 12. In the SEC, you're down with Auburn. You're down with Vanderbilt. Hell, you're down with Arkansas. You know, like it's really been thick over there, and it's been difficult to get good footing in this new conference. Now, that said, I think Brent Venables is one of the best defensive play callers in the sport. I've said that. I also think that his play calling is on par with some of the best offensive play callers in the sport. What we've seen in the past, though, is usually a head coach wants to give those privileges to someone else so he can do the head coach stuff. That's what Brent Venables was looking to do. However, anybody that has seen Brent Venables' defense going at high octane and speed understand when it's humming, there's nothing in the world that's going to get past it, right? And it wasn't as if Oklahoma was bad last year defensively. Actually pretty good. 19th overall in total defense. And they were really good at in scoring defense, giving up 21.5. The defense was the defense, right? We always expected the defense was going to be good, bordering on great. And that's kind of what it was. They just didn't have an offense that could help them out. Now, you just want an offense that can stay out of the defense's way, especially if you're getting the kind of play that Brent Venables demands. Favorite story about Brent Venables and being a taskmaster comes from Rufus Alexander. When I was first doing the show, he did a podcast with me, or a podcast episode as guest, I should say. And Rufus would watch Brent Venables drink half a Gatorade, take a Red Bull, dump the Red Bull in the other half of the Gatorade, shake it up, and drain it. He's also the kind of guy that would be losing his mind on the sideline going, you are too far outside. It's like, I'm right on my mark. I know where I'm supposed to line up. You're too far outside, right? If you move 2 steps to the right, that play is coming straight to you and you're going to make it. You move 2 steps to the left, it's going to get by you. And when you know it, he did those 2 steps because he got this man barking at him. And that play came right to him, and he was able to put somebody on their back for a tackle for loss. It is a man who understands alignment. He understands getting set, and he wants you to know what they're doing before they do it. It's less read and react, and it's more, I got your playbook in my skull. I'm going to tell you what you're going to do, and I'm going to stop it. That makes Brent Venables' defense really difficult. And, not for nothing, before Michigan made sign stealing into a national nightmare, Brent Venables was really good at picking off other people's signs offensively and then putting his guys in places where they could defend. And he was really, really good at finding out which one of these players he could bring into the fold to make into a monster, right? Like, I'm thinking about that 2018 defense. Dexter Lawrence, Christian Wilkins, right? That Cleveland Farrell, like all 4 of the guys on that starting defensive line got drafted, dog. That's ridiculous. And then Destroyer of Worlds, right? Isaiah Simmons, a guy that was at 6'4", about 230, could do anything you want. He could play free safety, strong safety. He could play middle linebacker, Sam. He could be an edge rusher. And he did all those things for Brent Venables at Clemson. If he can spot one of those guys and bring them in, the way that he might have done with, say, a DeSante McCullough when he first got there, you might have something special brewing. And I think that there's ways to do this. And now that you've got Jim Nagy picking out players for you, you're going to be that much more lethal because that guy understands talent evaluation and he understands what Brent Venables' defense wants to do better than I think many people who claim to be college football nerds understand that too. So if you are looking at this and you're asking the question, why is he getting up in somebody's face about why am I calling defense? It's exactly that. It's because he is really, really, really good at it. And I think it's going to be something to behold if Oklahoma can get this thing up and running quickly. I'm excited. I am. I really am. I can't wait to see 2025 Oklahoma take the football field.